There is a profound and undeniable shift happening right now. A cosmic turning of the tables that some saw coming long before the first card even fell. For the chosen, ones who sat in silence while others mocked their intuition, this moment feels like a sudden exhale after holding your breath for years. You watch them light the matches, pour the gasoline, and laugh while doing it, assuming there would never be a price to pay. But the universe doesn't argue with arrogance. It simply waits for the appointed time to deliver the bill. Now the storm they ignited is raging at their own front door, and you are watching from a place of safety, realizing that your silence was never weakness. It was the sound of consequences loading. You have to understand that people often mistake silence for emptiness, but for you, that quiet was a fortress of protection. They laughed because you didn't clap back, because you didn't engage in the petty dramas, and because you refused to explain yourself to those who weren't listening anyway. They called you too intense, too deep, or simply too much, because your presence demanded a level of accountability they weren't ready to face. But look at them now. The very things they dismissed as your drama are unfolding in their lives as their unfixable reality. They are no longer laughing. They are pacing the floor at night, wondering why the ground beneath them feels like quicksand. Karma, my dear friends, is not a punisher in the way we often imagine. It is not an angry God seeking revenge. Karma is simply equilibrium. It is the universe's way of ensuring that every ounce of energy projected outward eventually finds its way back to the source. When they threw stones at you, they were signing a contract for their own future pain, but they were too distracted by the thrill of throwing to read the fine print. They thought they were exempt from the rules of cause and effect. They truly believed that because you didn't retaliate, there were no consequences at all. They are learning, in the hardest way possible, that silence from a powerful person is not permission to continue. It is a warning that the clock is ticking. We have to talk about the audacity of using your kindness as a weapon against you. These people didn't just stumble into your life, they studied you. They saw your empathy, your forgiveness, and your willingness to see the best in people, and they viewed those virtues as loopholes to be exploited. They used your heart like a resource, mining it for validation until they had taken everything they could get, leaving you drained and wondering what you did wrong. But here is the truth: you didn't do anything wrong. You were simply a beacon of light in a world full of moths, and when they got too close and burned themselves, they tried to blame the flame. There is a brutal poetry in watching the people who called you crazy for setting boundaries now find themselves trapped in relationships with no boundaries at all. They told you that you were too rigid, that you expected too much, and that you needed to loosen up and live a little. They painted your caution as fear and your discernment as judgment. Now, they are surrounded by the very chaos they invited into their lives. They are drowning in the lack of structure they once mocked, realizing too late that the walls you built were not to keep people out, but to keep the toxic energy that destroys souls from getting in. Think about the specific warnings you gave them. Remember those moments when you sat them down, looked them in the eye, and told them exactly where their current path was leading. You didn't say it to be mean. You didn't say it to control them. You said it because you had a vision of the future that they were blind to, and out of love, you tried to redirect them. But they couldn't hear you. Their ego was too loud, their certainty too high. They labeled you as negative, as a hater, or as someone who just didn't want to see them happy. Now, as those predictions manifest one by one, your words are echoing in their minds, louder and more persistent than any shout. We must also address the spiritual side of this, because energy is real, whether they believe in it or not. They treated spiritual laws like playground games, thinking they could dabble in manipulation and deceit without facing spiritual recoil. They mocked the idea of what goes around comes around, treating it like a fairy tale for the weak. But the laws of the universe are not suggestions. They are absolutes. Gravity doesn't care if you believe in it before you step off a ledge. and karma doesn't care if you think it's a joke before it knocks on your door. The spiritual decay they are experiencing now is not bad luck. It is the direct result of them sowing seeds of destruction. It is fascinating to observe how differently the chosen ones and the ignorant handle the concept of power. When you have true power, you don't need to announce it. You don't need to scream, fight, or prove anything to anyone. You know your worth, and you know that time is your greatest ally. But for them, power was a performance. It was loud, it was desperate, and it required a constant audience. They needed you to react so they could feel they had an effect on you. When you refused to give them that reaction, when you chose the path of silence, you stripped them of their power source. Without your engagement, their show became meaningless, and that is when the panic truly set in. This brings us to the idea of freedom. They claimed they were breaking free when they walked away from you or discarded your advice. They said they needed to find themselves, to live without rules, to be wild and untethered. But what they called freedom was actually just unguided chaos. Freedom without wisdom is simply a faster path to destruction. They took off the wheel because they didn't like the direction, but they didn't realize that the car was heading for a cliff. Now they are wrecked in the middle of nowhere, looking at the ruins of their liberation, wishing they had listened to the navigator they tried so hard to silence. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from living a lie, and they are feeling it deeply now. For a long time, they were able to mask their true intentions with charm and fake smiles. They projected an image of success and happiness to the world, hoping that if they pretended long enough, it would become real. But lies require energy to maintain. They require a constant vigilance to keep the stories straight and the masks from slipping. Eventually, the weight of that deception becomes too heavy to carry. The fatigue they are feeling isn't physical. It is the spiritual exhaustion of a soul that has been fighting against its own truth for too long. We also have to acknowledge the loneliness that is currently consuming them. They thought they could replace genuine connection with superficial admiration. They traded your loyalty for a crowd of strangers who would clap for them, but wouldn't take a bullet for them. They wanted fans, not family. Now they sit in rooms full of people or scroll through endless lists of contacts, but they have never felt more alone in their lives. They are realizing that the kind of bond they had with you is rare, perhaps even once in a lifetime, and they burned it down thinking they could find better in the ashes. Let's talk about the mirrors they are facing now. When you were in their life, you served as a mirror, reflecting their potential and their flaws simultaneously. They didn't like what they saw in that reflection because it required them to change. So they broke the mirror. They got rid of you, but here is the secret. Getting rid of the mirror doesn't change your face. It just leaves you unable to fix what's wrong. Now, they are walking through life with no reflection, bumping into walls, stumbling over their own defects, with no one there to tell them the truth. They are tripping over their own egos, and there is no one left to blame but themselves. The concept of time plays a huge role in this unraveling. They thought that if they could just outrun the consequences for a little while, they would be safe forever. They relied on your silence to mean that the danger had passed, but time doesn't heal wounds that aren't treated, and it doesn't erase debts that aren't paid. In fact, the longer a debt goes unpaid, the higher the interest climbs. They are now paying back debts with interest that has compounded over months or years of denial. The consequences are arriving not as a gentle tap on the shoulder, but as a massive wave crashing down on everything they built. It is important to remember that you did not cause this for them. You are not the one orchestrating their downfall. You simply stepped out of the way. Imagine standing in front of a swinging door. If you stand there, you get hit every time it swings. But if you step aside, the door swings harmlessly past you. You stepped aside, you stopped absorbing the blows. You stopped cushioning their fall. So now, when the door swings back as it always does, there is no one there to soften the impact. They are hitting the full force of their own actions, and it is shocking to them because they are so used to you being their shield. The pain they are feeling is not just surface-level disappointment. It is a soul-level devastation. They targeted your spirit, trying to dim your light because your brightness exposed their darkness. They didn't want to heal their shadows. They wanted to drag you into them so they wouldn't feel so alone in the dark. But when you refused to join them, they felt exposed. Now, the light is gone from their life because they pushed out the only person who brought it. They are sitting in the dark they created, and it is terrifying them. The coldness they are feeling is the absence of the warmth they took for granted. For a long time, you may have questioned yourself. You might have wondered if you were indeed too sensitive, too demanding, or if maybe you were the problem after all. That is what gaslighting does. It makes you doubt your own sanity, but seeing them now serves as the ultimate vindication. You are watching the proof that you were right all along. Your intuition was spot on. Your boundaries were necessary. Your warnings were valid. You don't need them to apologize to you anymore to know you were right. Their reality is apologizing for them every single day. They are realizing, much too late, that the energy they sent out was the energy they would have to live in. They tried to weaponize your silence, to make it look like you were defeated. But silence is a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. When they pushed you out, they created a void that something had to fill. Unfortunately for them, that void is being filled by the very negativity they projected. The space in their life where your love used to be is now occupied by anxiety, paranoia, and regret. They are learning that silence is not empty. It is full of answers, and they don't like the answers they are hearing. There is a certain panic that sets in when a manipulator loses control. They thrived on the chaos on the back end, forth on the emotional roller coaster. When you stopped screaming back, when you stopped defending yourself, you took away their control. Now they are screaming into the void, and the void is screaming back. They can't sleep because the silence they once mocked is now amplifying the voice of their own guilty conscience. They are realizing that the chaos they provoked has consumed them, and there is no exit strategy left on the table. We have to appreciate the sheer precision of the universe's timing. It can be frustrating when we see bad people doing well for what seems like a long time. We ask, why now? Why not sooner? But the universe waits until the ego is at its peak, until the person thinks they are truly invincible. That is when the lesson hits the hardest. If they had faced these consequences earlier, they might have been able to recover. But by waiting until they were fully invested in their own arrogance, the universe ensures that the collapse is total. There is no rebuilding on a foundation that has been completely eroded by the weight of one's own lies. They are discovering that they cannot buy their way out of this one. They cannot charm their way out of it, and they certainly cannot blame their way out of it. The excuses that used to work on others are useless against the reality of their own suffering. They can say it's bad luck. They can say it's someone else's fault, but deep down, they know the truth. They know that this is the harvest of the seeds they planted. They are choking on the fruit of the tree they poisoned, and no amount of sugarcoating is going to make that pill go down smoothly. It is also vital to note the difference between your silence and theirs. Your silence was empowered and full of dignity. You were quiet because you were processing, healing, and preparing for your next level. Their silence, however, is born of shame and cowardice. They are silent now because they have no words. They have no explanations that hold water. They are hiding because they cannot face the person they see in the mirror, and they certainly cannot face you. So they retreat, thinking that hiding will save them, not understanding that you cannot hide from the energy you put out into the world. As this chapter closes for you, it is essential to focus on your own rising. Do not spend your days watching their house burn. Do not stand by the window waiting for them to finally apologize. You have work to do, gifts to share, and a life to live that is far beyond the drama they are currently trapped in. Your energy is too precious to be wasted on watching karma do its job. Karma is a professional. It doesn't need your help. Your job is to continue glowing, to continue aligning with your truth, and to show the world what it looks like to survive and thrive with your integrity intact. They underestimated the power of a heart that truly loves, believing it to be weak. But a heart that loves deeply also forgives deeply, but it also knows when to close the door for good. They thought your love was unconditional to the point of absurdity, that you would accept any behavior just to keep the peace. They learned the hard way that even the most loving heart has limits, and when those limits are crossed, the door doesn't just shut, it locks. The love you had for them has transformed into a lesson for them and a liberation for you. In the end, this isn't just about them getting what they deserve. It is about you reclaiming your space in the universe. It is about understanding that your value was never determined by how they treated you. You are chosen not because you suffered, but because you survived the suffering with your soul intact. You are the proof that light can exist in darkness, and that silence can be the loudest sound of all. So let them scream, let them scramble, and let them deal with the reality they created. You are busy building an empire on the solid ground of truth. So as you move forward, hold your head high, stop checking over your shoulder, stop wondering if they are thinking of you. They are. Trust me, they are thinking of you more than ever because you were the best thing they ever had, and they know it. But that is no longer your concern. Your concern is your peace, your joy, and your alignment with the higher frequency you have worked so hard to reach. You warned them, you loved them, and you left them. Now, let the universe handle the rest. The harvest has begun, and you are no longer part of the crop they destroyed. You are the watcher rising above the storm, finally free.